Right now. It is a Tuesday morning. We're starting the day with some breaking news regarding the country's main opposition party, the Congress. We're going to move very quickly to that. The Congress is going to be holding elections to the post of its president, as you already know, on October 17th. A few days ago, we saw the stormy exit of one of the party's most senior leaders, Ghulam Nabi Azad. We also, before that, saw quite a bit of drama over other posts. Now we have some information from our sources regarding the Congress presidential polls set to take place in about 18 days from now. Firstly, we're learning that the Congress itself is encouraging as many people to contest as possible. It wants these polls to be open. We're learning that many of the G23 group, possibly one G23 member at least, will contest. Some of the names in the ring: Gehlot, of course, the Rajasthan Chief Minister, Sachin Pilot, also from Rajasthan, Mallikarjun Kharge, Shashi Tharoor. These are some of the names doing the rounds. Remember, as we speak, Rahul Gandhi is currently on the biggest Padyatra that the Congress has undertaken since independence. He, it seems, has been clear about not putting his name in for nomination once again. My colleague, our senior editor, Pallavi Ghosh, with us this morning to bring us a lot more context on this entire story. Pallavi, we're starting the day with you. We're starting the day with this story. Could you set the stage for us, please?
So we all know that a procedure begins ideally on 24th of September. That's where the nomination papers are going to be filed, and they are going to end on 30th. And that's where after that is going to be the scrutiny. But I think the most important is going to be withdrawal of nominations. So we'll eventually get an idea about who's really going to be contesting then. Now, it's interesting. I'm just going to go by Shashi Tharoor's comment where he wrote an article in a paper where he says that while everyone wants Rahul Gandhi to become the Congress president, we should also be in a position where a non-Gandhi or someone not from the family becomes the Congress president. Of course, this has given rise to speculation on whether Shashi Tharoor could be one of those people, but no decisions have been taken yet. What I'm certainly picking up by way of sources from the Congress is that they do want people to file in their nomination, because what they hope to achieve is, one, counter this entire narrative of the BJP specifically, that is all about the dynasty and that they cannot look beyond the Gandhis. Second, the Congress hopes to have a real election and therefore point a finger at other political parties, again specifically at the BJP, that unlike in your case where your president is chosen, it is here that the party cadre and the workers have actually chosen who the Congress president is going to be. And third and finally, Toya, if someone from the G23 doesn't file a nomination, then they hope to silence them once and for all and expose them.
Okay, Pallavi, a little more context from you here also on what we've seen Anand Sharma say in the last few days. I know he's raised some questions about the electoral rolls. Could you just explain what that is to our audiences?
Well, that was, of course, denied by Jairam Ramesh. But again, what we pick up is, and it's not just Anand Sharma at the CWC meeting. This is something which many in the G23 have been making the point, that you talk about organizational elections, but at the block level, at the district level, you don't have a setup in place. There is no infrastructure. No one has been given a slip over there. No one has been connected with. So the process seems to be heading up for a complete of a sham. And this is something which the Congress party, of course, has officially denied.
Okay, Pallavi, stay with us because I believe we have some more breaking news regarding exactly this story. I want to come back to it in a second. Congress leader Shashi Tharoor has apparently thrown his hat into the ring in his latest statement in a Malayalam daily yesterday. He's seen to have said, and I'm going to quote here, many Congress workers have been dismayed by Rahul Gandhi's refusal to contest and his statement that no member from the Gandhi family should replace him. It is really for the Gandhi family to decide where they collectively stand on this issue. But in a democracy, no party should put itself in the position in believing that only one family can lead it. Let's go back to my colleague Pallavi right now to understand more. Pallavi, as our audiences are given to understand, there are statements that Tharoor had made in a daily yesterday. But Pallavi, I'd like to understand from you, if Tharoor were to put his name down, is it too early to speculate on the question of how seriously would other Congress leaders take his nomination, especially against a name like Gehlot in the run-up to the elections?
See, there is always a concern and there's always a grey area. Will this be a real election? Or will there be a pressure or a kind of an indirect whip issued on most of the party leaders, and they would be told informally that this is the name which really has been approved by the by a top leadership, and therefore you end up voting for them. So that's always going to remain a grey area. And in a party like the Congress party, where the communication internally often seems to be very confused and unclear and very blurry, will that really work? There's no clarity yet whether Shashi Tharoor is going to be throwing in his hat into rings, because sources close to him saying that no such decision has been taken, and one should not read too much into the comments, but I wouldn't be surprised. But I think there are two things here. One, there are genuinely some people who would want to prove a point by contesting, and they could be members of G23. And second, the main Congress would also want people to file their nominations, and that could be a hidden understanding. You file in your nomination so that at least it looks like we are having a semblance of a real election.
Pallavi, I want to ask you here before we let you go, how do analysts see these elections going down? There's more than a month left, a month and a half left. What are all signs pointing towards right now?
Well, more than the nomination days, whether you're going to file the nomination, I would watch out for the day the withdrawal of nomination takes place. And more, of course, the most biggest question of them all, Toya, is that will Rahul Gandhi file his nomination? So far, he says no. He is likely to be on a Bharat Jodo Yatra, but Congress says that, he doesn't have to be there personally. If he gives his consent to contesting, then anyone else can file a nomination paper on his behalf. But I think the multi-dollar question really here is, Toya, is Rahul Gandhi going to buckle under pressure and fight the elections?
Pallavi, before we let you go, in just a few seconds from now, we're going to actually play out for our audiences your interview with senior Congress leader Ghulam Nabi Azad. And before we go to that, I just want to understand from you, could you tell us about the reverberations that Ghulam Nabi Azad's letter has had in the Congress over the last few days?
Media timeline and sound bites of Congress leaders. They say that they don't care about Azad, but clearly they have been fazed by it. They have been perturbed by it, because some of the points which he made are something which many in private Congress party kind of accepts. I think the biggest point he made of them all was that under Rahul Gandhi's style of politics and strategy, the Congress has not won elections. I think that's the biggest challenge for them at this point of time. Gujarat, Himachal, Karnataka later on. Congress really has to win elections to at least silence its critics outside and within.
Okay, Pallavi, do stay with us. We have a Lok Sabha